This conference will now be recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the March 6th, 2024 South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners meeting. I am calling this meeting to order. At this time, I would ask you all to please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We do have all commissioners present this evening for roll call. Moving on to announcements, I'd like to announce that all public sessions of the South Whitehall Township Board of Commissioners are electronically recorded, filed, and posted to board on the Township website for public access. This time I'll ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to review our public virtual meeting rules.
Thank you. The public virtual meeting rules are as follows. Courtesy of the floor for non-agenda items will be at the beginning and end of the agenda. Public comment will be limited to 5 minutes per speaker. For all listed agenda items, the board president will call for courtesy of the floor prior to the Board of Commissioners taking action on that specific agenda item. For in-person attendees, please raise your hand to be recognized, then move to the podium when directed. You will be asked to state your name and address for the record and may then proceed with asking your question. For those participating virtually, please mute your microphone or telephone to avoid any background noise that may cause interference during the meeting. The chat box feature will be active throughout the meeting. If you have a comment or question, please type your full name and address into the chat box. The staff member monitoring GoToMeeting will then unmute your microphone and you will have the opportunity to comment or ask a question. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I'd like to also announce the Board of Commissioners did meet in executive session prior to tonight's meeting to discuss legal issues. Moving on to agenda item 4, courtesy of the floor. This is opportunity for any member of the public to approach the board on any non-agenda items. Is there anyone present this evening to approach? Is there anyone online? Hearing and seeing none, I'll move on to agenda item 5, presentations. This evening, we have the retirement of one of our police officers, South Whitehall Township Police Department retirement of Officer Thomas Webb. Officer Webb could not be here tonight, but we do want to recognize him. Officer Thomas Webb was hired by the South Whitehall Township Police Department on August 18, 1999. He attended Montgomery County Police Academy before starting his field training program in 2000. Tom spent 24 years in the patrol division until his retirement on March 3, 2024. Officer Webb received 3 commendations during his career, 1 life-saving medal, 1 exceptional service medal, and 1 unit citation medal. Tom is an Army veteran and has started full-time employment with the Lehigh County Sheriff's Department. We thank Officer Webb for his service to the residents of South Whitehall Township, and we wish Tom well in his retirement and second career. Moving on to agenda item 6, meeting minutes from the February 21st, 2024 meeting have been distributed to the board for your review. Are there any comments or questions? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Agenda item 7A, ordinances. We have a motion to proceed with adoption of said ordinance. An ordinance of the Township of South Whitehall, County of Lehigh, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Part 1, Administration Legislation, Chapter 58, Pensions, Article 2, Deferred Compensation Plan of the Codified Ordinances of South Whitehall Township to reestablish and restate the Deferred Compensation Plan, amend the plan document in use for said plan, and providing for the repealer clause, severability clause, and effective date. I'll ask our Township Manager, Tom Petrucci, to present this agenda item.
Thank you. So this ordinance has been reviewed by the police union nationwide and VALIC Corbridge. Those are the plan investment managers. It was also reviewed by the pension committee and sent to the public works union. This ordinance has gone through several iterations and is now ready for adoption if the board is inclined. The public notice for the ordinance was advertised in the February 14th/15th issue of the Lehigh Valley Press, Parkland Press. The pension committee, I'll note, had taken previous action to recommend the adoption of this ordinance and the corresponding plan document. So I would ask for a motion to adopt.
Thank you, Tom. I just had one question. Did the township receive any feedback from the public in response to the advertisement of this ordinance?
The township has not received any feedback.
Very good, thank you. We'll open up to the board if there are any comments or questions. Any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to proceed with adoption of said ordinance?
I'll make a motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 7B for discussion only, an ordinance of the Township of South Whitehall, County of Lehigh, Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, amending Part 2, General Legislation, Chapter 304, Streets and Sidewalks, to add a new Article 5 entitled Snow, Ice, and Sleet Removal to the codified ordinances of South Whitehall Township, and further providing for removal of snow, ice, and sleet from sidewalks, depositing of snow is restricted, enforcement and violations, violation ticket appeal process, fines and penalties, amending Part 2, General Legislation of the codified ordinances of South Whitehall Township, repealer, failure to enforce, not a waiver, severability, and an effective date. And Tom, I'll ask again if you'd present this agenda item.
Thank you. During the course of the 2023-24 winter season, which is rapidly winding down, it was discovered that the Code of Ordinances of South Whitehall Township does not currently include a standalone ordinance that addresses the timely removal of snow and ice from sidewalks located in the township. Currently, the code enforcement officer has two different options that they could utilize. One is in Section 148A 5B, which doesn't necessarily have the language we're looking for at this time. And the second is in the property maintenance code, which also doesn't specifically address snow and ice. It just indicates that sidewalks should be kept in a hazard-free condition. So township management and staff then developed a draft ordinance in order to get ahead of the 24-25 winter season. And the ordinance essentially, basically, the intent is to ensure that snow, ice, and sleet, that they do not create a hazardous condition for the traveling public. It would require the snow and ice to be removed from sidewalks no later than 24 hours after the cessation of the snowstorm or weather event. And in the instances where it's not able to remove the snow and ice and it's compacted, a melting or traction agent would be required where the surface is still slippery and icy. It also requires fire hydrants to be clear of snow and ice to be removed from the entire sidewalk for the entire width of the sidewalk on fronting of the property. It also requires ADA ramps and sidewalks and Atlanta bus stops to be clear of snow and ice, and prohibits snow and ice to be thrown on public streets. And finally, in terms of prohibitions, it prohibits snow and ice accumulation to block stormwater drainage systems. And the ordinance sets forth an enforcement process, including a method to handle appeals. And there's two kind of housekeeping items administratively. It would remove Section 148A5A of the code, which is now addressed in the snow removal ordinance, as well as two sections of the code pertaining to loitering and drug paraphernalia, which are no longer used by the police department. Those sections are enforced by the Crimes Code of the Commonwealth. With that, I would open up to the board for any questions.
Thank you, Tom.
I think the first one would be, is there a way that we can provide the residents assistance if they're incapable of shoveling the snow? So I fall and break a hip in the winter and I can't get out and shovel my sidewalk. Will we be able to provide a list of public service agencies, people that need to do community work, community hours for whatever reason, that they could contact to meet the snow removal time period?
I think in this case, you wouldn't be able to use township local forces to take the action, right? I know that's not. I don't think you're suggesting.
No,
that.
no, I'm talking about high school kids that need community hours. Could there be a way that we could get or provide the residents? So I call up the township and say, look, I broke my hip, I can't shovel the snow. Township could say, call this person. They have people who need community hours. we could back on the person to call the resident to call them to get help to remove their snow, or elderly.
We can always provide information and resources. We certainly couldn't compel anyone to require them to use that, or to require the people that are needing community service hours to do it.
Correct.
But we can certainly provide the resource.
Right. So I'm not saying we compel anybody to do anything, but instead of going to me and say, you need to get your snow removal, I says, well, you need to tell my doctor to let me shovel snow. Right. We can then say, here's here's a list of numbers you could call that provide this service, or communities that need to provide community service hours or whatever for you to meet the requirement.
Yes, and I will say too, we can certainly try to work with people
Right.
in those extreme circumstances as well, and that's our approach to all enforcement matters.
And I guess that's my point overall is are we be able to provide resources? So the first snow we had this year was very heavy, right? So we had a number of people who had medical issues as a result of moving that. If they have a medical issue, could they, hey, it's heavy snow, I can't shovel it, I got medical issues. Is there somebody I could call? And then we could provide them with contact information.
Yeah, I think we can look into that further, but I don't see why we can't provide information resources.
I think building off of Commissioner Peichel's question, just as we move through this and once we roll it out, public education, I think, is going to be a big component of this, just basically letting people know, hey, have a plan in place, for when there's snow, whether it be for people who aren't able to do it themselves, or I know a couple of the past snowstorms, it's easy to tell who's away on vacation or who's away for the winter because their sidewalks and driveways aren't shoveled. So you put something out ahead of time and, give people the option to either get people together or inquire and have a plan. And then the second question is, have we received a lot of complaints, or are there places in the township where people aren't clearing the snow?
Yeah.
Is this a common problem
Yeah.
we've seen in the last few years?
Yes, the issue was mostly along the Walbert corridor, and so people do use it to go to the library, to come to the township building. So yes, we did receive a few complaints, and we are on a complaint-driven process as well. So it is important to note that as well. I don't believe the intention here is to actively go out and seek violations. That's not our standard at the present time for any enforcement items.
It would be similar to other parts of code enforcement where you're acting on complaints or someone has an issue, not that we're going to go out and start tagging homes and properties where the right-of-way sidewalks aren't clear.
Correct. We would follow our complaint process for our RFIs, requests for investigation. But the ordinance, to be clear, in the cases where it's very blatant and the code enforcement officer notices the violation, he or she would have the right to take action without the complaint.
I just have a comment, and it's more or less along the public education aspect. I'm wondering if maybe in the winter, or now with our e-newsletters when they're coming out every month, if we're going forward with that, if we could have some type of guideline. It says, clearing of the snow and using a traction method in case, if you have ice or something like that. Maybe giving some guidelines and suggestions, because the rock salt's really corrosive, and we also want to protect our sidewalks, and they're expensive to put in. I was just wondering if a guideline, you don't have to use it, but this is what we would prefer to use just to save your sidewalk. Like, I think calcium chloride and magnesium chloride are a little less corrosive. Herb, you would probably know better than I, but just as a guideline on the website or as part of the education.
Yeah, that's a great idea. We will certainly do that.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question, Tom, on the fire hydrants. The fire hydrants where people don't have sidewalks, but are out in the rural area, are that homeowner responsible to keep that clear, or is Public
Yes.
Works going to be out there to keep it clear?
Technically, the homeowner is responsible.
I mean, like you go up Cedar Crest Boulevard, you got the homes on there where there's fire hydrants, and you got the plows coming back, and they could be out there all day doing that. I didn't know if Public Works does that or if that homeowner has to do that.
Technically, it's the homeowner responsibility. I know. Do you ever take action, Herb?
if they're not shoveled out and the fire departments need assistance, we
Right.
will get a piece of equipment there to help them. But no, we don't have like a, for say, person or crew that just goes and shovels out fire hydrants.
Okay, I didn't know, because up by my way, it's off of Ritter Road and Orfield Road and up through Phoenix, or what's that development across the street there? Pheasant Hills. I mean, there's no sidewalks or anything in there. That's why I was asking.
Yeah, no, currently we do not, unless we are aware that there's a
Okay.
fire and they might need them, then we'll get equipment there, but we don't have a crew that takes care of
Yeah,
it.
because I know on my property I have one, and it's covered every winter when we have big snows by PennDOT. So, okay, thank you.
Mhm.
And Tom, I just had one question. If there is an enforcement issue, is it possible that the township could maybe have a brochure or something to hand out to a resident who might not be aware of this when a code officer might show up at their house?
Yeah, I'm thinking the one-page guide that Monica suggested could be distributed. Absolutely.
Okay, very good. And at this point, we're sending it for legal review. It's not ready for advertisement. So if there are other thoughts that the board has between now and then, we can certainly discuss. Is there any other board comments at this time? Are there any public comments? Yes. Good evening. Just make sure you turn the microphone on and give us your name and address for the record.
My name is Don Sheetsley. I live at 1411 Hampton Road, Allentown. And I think it's great that you're doing this because it's a major topic of discussion on next door with people who think you're just rude because you're not doing sidewalks. So I think it's great that you're doing this. I have walked down Walbert every morning for months and finally gave up because there's so many people that didn't do their sidewalks all the way down. And the other suggestion I have, I'll talk to Herb, is that even when the sidewalks are done, he did a great job shoveling snow, but in many cases, the plow shoveled big piles in front of the sidewalks. So that's another reason why I couldn't walk. So if the sidewalk was cleared by the person, you couldn't get around it because it had a big pile of snow. That's my only suggestion. Thank you.
Thank you for that feedback. Are there any other public comments on this agenda item? Anything in the chat? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to forward this ordinance draft to legal for review?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 8A, resolutions. We have a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township to repeal the 2008 South Whitehall Township Shade Tree Policy and Guide and replace it with the 2024 South Whitehall Township Shade Tree Policy and Guide. And I'll call on our long-range planner, Chris Stroller, to present this agenda item.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. The board recalls in January, we passed 2 ordinances regarding shade trees. The first being Chapter 17, Article 7, that dealt with the Landscape and Shade Tree Commission. The other being Chapter 330, Trees. These ordinances stemmed from the board-directed implementation item out of the comp plan to look at trying to align all of our boards and commissions and councils. And the other piece of this, when adopting these ordinances, we looked at, similar to kind of the previous subject, under the landscape and shade tree goals, we didn't really have good enforcement options. Therefore, Chapter 330 Trees spells out enforcement options and permitting options. If the board recalls, when we looked at adopting these, we identified the need to update the shade tree policy and the guide that comes in to look at the approved species list and the process to plant and remove shade trees. So what we have in front of you is really just an update to the 2008 policy. That is there. The only change really here is more of a housekeeping item to look at removing conflicting language out of the policy so that it fits more consistently with the recently adopted ordinances. Staff has also recognized that we would like to dig into the kind of standard operating procedure for shade tree maintenance and provide more clear information to residents about what goes into shade tree maintenance. And we have begun that process, internally bringing in
all of the departments that deal with shade trees, including code enforcement, community development, public works. And we would like to continue to proceed with that process. The policy update in front of you and the resolution to adopt this is really kind of an interim step to make sure that the policy that we have officially does not conflict with the new ordinance that was adopted in January. So the staff is requesting a motion to adopt the 2024 shade tree policy and guide that you have in your packet, and we'll follow up with another resolution talking more about the process that we're looking at as staff to continue to update more information on the guide and public education surrounding this.
Very good. Thank you, Chris. I'll open up to the board if there are any comments or questions.
I thought this was a very comprehensive document. It's really well done. Everything was there, and I encourage everyone to take a look at this. There's a lot of information. I did have a question. I should know this, but who is our shade tree coordinator? Or is it the
It's not it's designated by the township manager, and the reason that it's not a specific title, it could be absorbed either by staff, different staff members. So the intent here is if we find that through this new process outlined in Chapter 330 trees, if it's more of an enforcement issue, the code enforcement officer can be designated as the shade tree coordinator. If it's more of a dealing with landowners and taking in permits, it can be someone from community development. And that's part of what we're working through in the kind of standard operating procedure that we'd like to develop more in the policy to see how this new ordinance and information that we're getting from residents helps us best respond to shade tree questions and best enforce if we need to.
Thank you.
Chris, just a question. The motion tonight is to approve this, but you're going to work on this further, and we will see this policy and
Back
guide again
Correct.
for further review.
So for informational purposes, the second resolution in front of you is to apply for a grant to look at further developing the policy. The current shade tree policy, and Monica, I appreciate you liking the information that's in here. One of the things is it's rather daunting. It's about 90 pages. It's hard for a resident to understand. So the idea is that we would update this, have it a lot more user-friendly, and work in the standard operating procedure into that. So to answer your question, yes, the first resolution is to adopt the policy to clean up the housekeeping item to make sure that the language in the policy that we have out there for the public is not in conflict with the updated ordinances.
Very good. Any other board questions? Any from the public? Yes.
On Sheetsley, 1411 Hampton Road. So I have a question. Again, I haven't read the 90 pages like maybe Monica has, but I know. So is it still state that if somebody takes a tree down or falls down or dies, they have to get your blessing before it gets cut off? I know that's what it used to be. I don't know if people are doing that anymore, but is that what it's supposed to be, right?
Yes, so there is a permitting process required. It's a free permit, and it's a pretty expedited permitting process. And part of the update to the ordinance that was adopted in January was to ensure that this process is equitable across the way, so that if someone doesn't follow through with that process, there is enforcement.
How do people know they're supposed to do that? I mean, I know because I've come here enough, but how do people know that? Like my neighbor, this dead tree, said she could put her hand right through the tree, took it down, unless the guy who cuts the tree down knows, which is what I think generally happens. How do they know that?
Correct. It's a great question. That's actually why the second resolution that we'll be presenting is for a grant that we want to actually do a little bit more public outreach so that residents know this and that we can provide more information out to the public about what you need to do with your shade trees, what the process is, and proper maintenance so that we're not destroying the trees and having more dead trees.
The one time I tried to take my tree down in front and they came back and said, you can't do it because I didn't have your blessing. So I didn't have it taken down. But
Oftentimes the removal process is we look at that pretty quickly, especially if it is a hazard. We issue these permits pretty immediately. The permitting process helps us to ensure that the replacement tree is planted in a safe manner that isn't in any conflict with anything in the right of way.
Okay, so I'm not sure people are doing that. When I see people have their trees fall down, cut down, chopped up.
Yeah, we certainly
I don't
recognize
see
that. And
people replanting.
that's why we've started to go through this kind of multi-step process with the ordinance and the policy.
Okay.
And the
Clarify, because I think it needs to be done. I think it's important that we replace them. I just know that people know that.
And just to clarify, we're talking about street trees, so trees that are in
Right.
the right of way, not private property trees.
Maybe you put on your digital sign out in front.
Thank you for your comment. Is there any other public comment? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve said resolution?
So moved.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 8B, a resolution of the Board of Commissioners of South Whitehall Township to submit an application to the 2024 Lehigh Valley Greenways Conservation Landscape Mini Grant Program for the South Whitehall Shade Tree Education Grant. And Chris, if you'd present this agenda item as well.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. So obviously, we have heard from the public and from many residents that there isn't a lot of information out there. It's very clear about the responsibilities of shade trees. We have a great, excellent guide here that has a lot of information. The intent here, staff is requesting a resolution to apply for this mini grant to develop and update this policy and guide to work with a graphic designer to actually have a lot of graphics in it, a lot more information about, as Dave mentioned, street trees are concerned with trees within the right of way. A lot of people don't understand the difference between a street tree and a tree in their yard, where we have enforcement opportunities and where we don't. And the part of updating this guide, we would like to have a lot more public outreach for the importance of shade trees, proper maintenance and best management practices of shade trees, and be able to have an easy printable guide that we can distribute to people, have on our website, share information. We recognize that graphics are really big to get the message across. So the funding from this grant would be to hire a graphic designer to work with staff and hopefully some professional expertise with the State Bureau of Forestry, Penn State Extension, who can help us make sure that the information in this guide from 2008 is still best practice, and look at updating our existing species list of approved species. We always like to review that list to make sure that there's not species we're promoting that are vulnerable to diseases or different types of blight. The other component that we would like to do with this grant application is to host a public tree trimming session at one of our township parks, that if someone who is interested in maintaining their own shade trees, oftentimes it is usually contracted out, but for minor pruning work, we do allow that. And the importance of having this tree trimming workshop is to promote best practices so that people aren't topping trees or cutting branches that they shouldn't be. And it would be all part of this outreach and education for benefits of shade trees and what the responsibilities are as a resident landowner. So we are requesting a motion for a resolution that allows staff to apply for up to $4,000 from the Lehigh Valley Greenways Conservation Landscape Mini Grant. This is a 50-50 match program. So the township will need to contribute $4,000 of either cash or in-kind services. At this point, we're looking at cash for the payment of the graphic designer, which we would look at putting out an RFP if awarded. If we are not awarded this grant, we are still working to update the policy and we would still be reviewing the guide. Really, this grant is to help us kind of put together the more visually appealing piece of it, and hire someone to help with the tree trimming workshop.
Excellent. Very good, Chris. Thank you for that explanation. I really like the idea of the tree trimming session for the public, very hands-on. I'm sure that'll be very helpful for the residents. Do you have any idea when this grant is expected to be awarded?
I believe it's in mid-May. They make their announcement.
Very nice. Does the board have any comments or questions?
So would you go ahead with the tree trimming session even if we didn't get the grant?
We would probably come back to the board with specifics on that tree trimming session, having whoever the consultant or the firm would be. We're still exploring who can help us with that. Sometimes we can get Penn State Extension to maybe do part of it. Maybe they can do a cost share or an outside company just with an arborist. So if we don't get the grant, we would come back to the board with the details on what specifically we would want to pay for with that and request to use township funds.
Well, I think the tree trimming is a great idea, whether we get the grant or not. So instead of waiting, could we get some numbers and say, hey, this tree trimming program is going to cost us X amount of dollars?
Yeah, and we have been trying to get some of that information. I wish I did have more of that today. We haven't received the information we've been hoping to from Penn State Extension, so we're starting to look at outside arborists who can do that, and we could probably put out just a request for quotes.
Other questions from the board? Are there any public? Yes.
Don Sheasley, 1411 Hampton Road. Are we the only township that has this committee, or do all of them have it? Because it seems like maybe this, to me, overkill.
In the first class township code, you're allowed to have a landscape and shade tree committee, or a commission, I should say. Many do throughout Pennsylvania.
Like Upper Macungie, Lower Macungie, do you know if they have, or North Whitehall with, you know if they have
I don't know offhand. The commission itself, we have had since 1969, I believe. So it's certainly nothing new, and it's nothing new to first class townships.
It just seems like it's a big deal, and maybe it shouldn't be. I don't know, it's just my opinion. I don't know whether, if somebody didn't plant one tree when they took one down when it died, is it that big a deal? You ever get complaints or anything that generates this, or just because it's been a standard for the last?
No, we get complaints a lot, and we've updated the permitting process in the past, and a lot of this has been kind of complaint driven and looking at ensuring not only the aesthetic and the quality of life in our township,
Right.
but the potential hazards. Hazards are really the big one, that we have older neighborhoods that have very well established trees. If those trees are not maintained, or if those trees need to come down, we need to make sure that we have the process in order.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There are no other public comments at this time. Do I have a motion to approve said resolution?
Second.
Motion a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Chris.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 9, motions. 9A, we have a motion to award bid with regard to the 4109 River Road Concrete Barrier Project. And I'll ask our Director of Operations, Herb Bender, to please present.
Thank you. On February 26, 2024, one bid was received for the River Road Concrete Barrier Project. This bid was advertised in local publication as required by law. 44 potential bidders downloaded and received bid documents from the Penn Bid website. At the February 7, 2024 meeting, the board approved the advertisement of the bid for a contractor to supply and install concrete barrier at part of the Jordan Creek Greenway Trail project for the widening and relocating of a portion of River Road. Capital funds were budgeted for the entire River Road widening with the barrier in the amount of $315,000. Baseline Contracting submitted a bid for the total installed price of the concrete barrier of $162,843.10. The bid tabulation is attached. Our Public Works Department will complete the balance of the necessary work for the road widening of this road and will remain within the approved budget for this project. The township has contacted the references provided and have received satisfactory results. The Public Works and Purchasing Department are respectfully requesting the board to award the contract for this project to Baseline Contracting.
Thank you, Herb. Are there any comments or questions on this motion?
I do have a question. Herb, when I was looking through the bid specs, it said single-face concrete barrier with painted form liner pattern. Is that like a stamped concrete? Will there be texture? Is it going to be painted?
It's going to be stained. So it'll be stained to look like rocks are stacked on top of each other.
Okay. All right. So aesthetically, it's going to look nice. It'll complement the stone.
Yes, and we did reach out to the homeowner that lives directly across from this, and he has approved what this would look like.
And I'm directly familiar with this process in the past, and it's both aesthetically pleasing and durable. You just have to make sure you don't get road salt, to your point earlier. You don't want it splashing up against the stain. So that's something to be aware of.
Are there any other board comments or questions? Any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do I have a motion to approve said motion?
Second.
Motion a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 9B, we have a motion to award bid with regard to road building materials. And Herb, if you'd present again.
Thank you. 2 bids were received and opened on Thursday, February 28, 2024 for the road building materials bid. This bid was advertised once in a local publication as required by law. 19 potential bidders downloaded and received bid documents from the Penn Bid website. This bid was previously requested and approved to be advertised by the Board of Commissioners at the February 7, 2024 meeting for the yearly roadway surfacing schedule for various roads within the township, in addition to the yearly needs for patching and road repairs. As part of this bid award, the board will have the option to renew this contract for an additional 3 one-year terms after the initial term of 1 year at the original contract price. The action we are requesting, the board to approve the award of the contract to New Enterprise Stone and Lime. This is budgeted in multiple line items: the street construction, which is the paving for 2024, general government materials for street repairs, general government materials for water patches, and general government materials for sewer repairs, which would be patches if we have a sewer break or something. Again, we did do our due diligence to look into these bids that came in. We did compare them to the CoStar's pricing. The pricing is better. So that's why we are asking to get a contract this year instead of going off the CoStar's price.
Very good, Herb. Thank you. And this did come in under budget.
Yes, we give them quantities. That's what they bid off of, but you are not mandated to take all the quantity.
Understood. Thank you. Other board questions on this motion? None? Any public comment? Do I have a motion to approve said motion?
So moved.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 8C, we have a motion to proceed with advertising bid for the 2024 road milling project. Herb?
Thank you. South Whitehall Township Public Works Department is respectfully requesting permission to advertise a 2024 roadway milling bid. Attached to this memo is the completed bid specifications for your reference, outlined on pages 13 and 14, and the technical specifications are the road which we are requesting to have milled. The township will resurface these areas with the Public Works employees. Capital funds have been approved in the 2024 budget online for $177,519, but only anticipate spending $174,648.
Very good, Herb. Thank you. Open it up to questions or comments.
Or was there any way, did you check with UGI that in a year they come back and says, hey, we're going to go through what we just are going through this year with gas line replacement?
Yes, we had 2 or 3 meetings already, and right after before we award the contract, we are going to meet with them one more time to make sure their capital has not changed since the last time we met.
Very good. Any other comments? Any public comment? Do I have a motion to proceed with advertising said motion? We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 9D, we have a motion to proceed with purchase of Ventrac mower with mower attachment. And Herb, if you'd present.
Sure. Public Works Division is respectfully asking for a motion to proceed with ordering a Ventrac with a mower attachment. The price for this piece of equipment is $51,452. Public Works solicited 4 quotes to ensure that we are getting the best price and best piece of equipment for our needs. The current mower that this will be replacing is a 2008 Toro wing mower with about 5,000 hours. After demoing 3 wing mowers along with the Ventrac can cut steep slopes in all our detention basins. This piece of equipment, we can add other attachments to make this a multi-use piece of equipment. Requesting a motion to proceed with the purchase of a Ventrac with the mower deck. This was budgeted for $91,000 in capital equipment and vehicles. The reason we are asking for the Ventrac is, as you can tell, when we budgeted $91,000, that was just for a wing mower. We would never be able to use that for anything else. If we go with the Ventrac, we can get other options for ball field grooming, leaf blowers on the front of them. There's multiple things. We can get a snow blower for sidewalks and stuff like that for this piece of equipment. And with the rising costs of the equipment, we're looking to get into where we can use one piece of equipment for more things than just grass cutting, which we wouldn't be able to do anything else with it then. So.
Very good. Thank you, Herb, and thank you for attaching the different bids to this packet for us. I'll open up to the board for any comments or questions on this motion. Any public comment? Do I have a motion to approve said motion?
Motion.
I have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Agenda item 9E, we have a motion to reject all bids regarding police body cameras and in-car video and digital evidence management system, RFP bid number 2024-01. And I'll ask Township Manager Tom Petrucci to present.
Thank you. So as the board is aware, the police department has been awarded just over $400,000 in grant funds for body cameras, and the township has also allocated just over $673,000 of ARPA funds to the body camera and in-car camera project. The township recently went out to bid again for both of those items. On February 26th, the bids were opened and checked for pricing and responsiveness. However, it was determined that the low bidder was deemed non-responsive due to incomplete documentation. Of the 2 bids that were provided, the next lowest bidder is outside that total combined budgeted amount between the ARPA and the grant funds. With that in mind, the township is asking to reject the bids and allow us to come back to you at the March 20th meeting with a revised purchasing plan that would be determined to be in compliant with Commonwealth procurement requirements for a 5-year purchase in lieu of the total of 15 years purchase. We're requesting that in recognition of we're trying to maximize the grant funding that we were provided for the body cameras, to maximize the ARPA funding overall that we have to have encumbered by the end of this year, as well as to ensure that we have flexibility in the future with an ever-evolving technological field, as well as a statutory, regulatory matter, which is subject to change. So, in summary, we're asking to reject the bids, to then allow us the flexibility to rebid if necessary, if it's determined that we can't come back with a compliant purchasing plan, but to primarily focus on providing said compliant purchasing plan for your consideration at the March 20th Board of Commissioners meeting.
Good, Tom. Thank you. I'll open up to the board if there's any comments or questions. Are there any from the public? Hearing and seeing none, do we have a motion to reject all bids regarding police body cameras and in-car video and digital evidence management system RFP bid number 2024-01 due to budgetary parameters? I'll make that motion. Is there a second? Motion is second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. And I will also make a motion to authorize staff to rebid or use a cooperative purchase method as appropriate and report back to the Board of Commissioners on March 20th on this agenda item. Do I have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you. And thank you to Police Department and team for bringing this together.
Thank you.
Moving on to agenda item 10, correspondence and information, boards and commissions, informational items and vacancies. Tom, if you'd please review.
Thank you. So upcoming meetings are as follows. Thursday, March 7th, 7 p.m. Zoning Hearing Board. Monday, March 11th, 7 p.m. Parks and Rec Board. Tuesday, March 12th, 6 p.m. Crime Watch meeting. Wednesday, March 13th, 10 a.m. Civil Service Commission. Wednesday, March 13th, 6 p.m. we have a Board of Commissioners special meeting to conduct interviews for current board vacancies. Thursday, March 14th, 7 p.m. is a Planning Commission meeting. Thursday, March 14th, 7 p.m. at the Citronia Operations Center is the Emergency Services Management meeting. And Wednesday, March 20th, 7 p.m. Board of Commissioners. All meetings, unless otherwise noted, are held here at the Township Building.
Good. Thank you, Tom. Moving on to direction and discussion, we have review of plans for the Vistas Park, and I'll ask our long-range planner, Chris Stroller, to update the board.
Thank you, Commissioner Kelly. Staff wanted to bring forward, I don't know the last time we really looked at the update on the Vistas Park project. It may have been this time last year. We wanted to report that we have moved forward significantly on the designs for this park. If you recall, we were awarded a Pennsylvania DCNR grant and a DCED grant to support the development of this park. I want to thank Tony Tallarita, township engineer, who's working with us on the development of these plans. So the plans are up on the screen, and the features that we'd like to highlight as an update, we have a walking path that will go around the existing soccer fields on the upper part of the park. If you recall, there's kind of a big grade differentiation between the upper fields and the lower fields. This project will include additional parking, additional ADA accessible parking, all of the routes and the ramps coming from the parking area and going around will be ADA accessible. It will include access to the sidewalk on the northern side on, I believe that's Clouser Road. This includes the construction of 2 pickleball courts, as you can see sort of in the top middle there, that include the fencing around them, and that we will also include, I believe, looking into kind of the potential sound dampening in the same process that we have done over at the Chester Heights Park. There is a small area between the existing basketball court and the new walking path that we're looking to have some nature play obstacles and play equipment installed there. And additionally, around the walking path, we have some space to put some dropped features that we're still working on with staff, whether that be benches or additional play equipment. We're looking at our options there that can be installed that fit within the space that we have in the areas surrounding. So if someone wants to go for a walk, they can have some additional features there. This is I would say we're close to about 85% with these plans. We wanted to bring them to the board as an update, see if you had any questions, kind of get your feedback on the direction we're going with this. Ideally, if this looks good to everyone, we would like to continue to go and share some of this information with the Parks and Recreation Board, get their feedback. And we are also looking to have a meeting, a public meeting over at the Vistas Park when the weather gets nice in the beginning of April, and specifically targeting outreach to the Vistas HOA there to get some of the residents to come out to see some of the updates and to talk about the process here. I'll say we are on track, if these designs move forward, to look at putting this out to bid over the summer and having construction completed by the fall. We will come back with the final plans along with the request to put out the bid for the board. So this won't be the last time you see those, obviously.
Thank you for that update. I very much appreciate your plan to bring this to the community and to the HOA there to get their feedback. It's a significant upgrade to their park, and community input is always so important. This plan looks terrific. I've kind of watched it evolve over the last couple of years, and I think you and team have done a great job of really putting together, I think, a dynamic park that'll really suit the neighborhood very, very nicely. So thank you. I'll open up to the board.
I just have two questions. First, a minor issue, but the pickleball courts, will they be double striped for tennis as well, like Winchester Heights, or just pickleball?
No, I think just pickleball for the space.
Small area.
Yes.
And then my second question is, in the memo, I know you guys talked about some of the revisions with some of the drainage concerns. Were there any, I'm just trying to rack my brain and remember the last time we looked at this last year. Have there been any changes in the amenities that the park will offer as a result of those concerns, or are they largely just engineering?
Not since last year. I think initially some of the concept plans that were put together for this park several years ago looked at doing a lot more on the lower portion to keep this within the construction boundaries that we've identified. And also, as part of this process, we've really looked at the need to keep the active recreation space there, specifically for games and practice on the upper field, and have the lower field available for that sort of use. That was sort of the piece that we moved away from. But from last year, when we looked at these, since we've had Pidcock on board to kind of update more of the construction ready type of drawings and look at the detailed engineering, no, there hasn't been any change. Thank you.
Is there another plan with like trees and where they're going to be? Because I've sat through a lot of games in the summer and I'm not a sun guy. Trees where the people could sit under. And
Yeah, actually, thank you, Herb. I actually did forget to mention that there's a shade, one of the amenities in here is a shade structure that we're looking at the proper placement, working with Tony on where we can get that to maximize the shade without interrupting any of the areas. I know the original plan called for a lot of plantings throughout the entire area. For this, one of the things we're looking at is with also the constraints of the budget. We didn't receive the full amount that we applied for from the DCD grant for this. And the construction footprint, we're looking at putting in these amenities. But I think probably in the future, we could always look at opportunities to plant additional trees once we have all these features in.
Any other comments from the board? Is there any public comment? Well, we look forward to, you don't need action from us tonight.
No, this is just an update, get your feedback. We're going
Excellent.
to take it around and we'll come back with
Fantastic.
official action probably in a month or two.
Excellent. We look forward to seeing you back again. Moving on to old business, we have none this evening. Again, courtesy of the floor, opportunity for anyone in the public to comment. Yes, sir. Of course.
You know, I walk every morning. A lot of people walk their dogs and stuff. And even on Winchester, where the sidewalks were clear, there's such big piles of snow at the end of the sidewalks, people are forced to walk on the street. I walk on the street, people walking their pets on the street because they can't get off the sidewalk to get off the street to get to the other sidewalk. So if there's anything you can do, I don't remember being that big a problem before. Also, the other issue I'm sure Herb knows is along Winchester, we lost a lot of mailboxes. Right, that I don't think this plows hit them. Maybe the snow hit them, but I don't know. There's at least 4 or 5 in a row on Winchester where they took the mailboxes.
I have received all the receipts. And did
I
check
thought you did. I
requests.
knew. But I don't know what's different. I don't remember that being a problem before. Why?
Honestly, this year the snow has been heavier. I mean, don't get me wrong, we've
What
had
the
some
heck?
light storms, and that's what happens. The snow rolls off the side of the plow
Right.
and it knocks them over. So is it technically our plow hitting it? No, not every
I know they
time.
didn't hit him because
Mhm.
it wasn't far away from the snow, but it just meant something changed in your process that,
Yep.
I don't know. Maybe it just went.
No, and we have this issue every year. That's why we started adding the proper mailbox placement, because
Right.
there's some that hang over the curb,
Right.
some that are not even near where they need to be. And before we do just sign it, we get pictures from them. We go out and look. If it's rotted wood or something, then we let them know that we're not going to reimburse for that one because it was not up to par before the snow even got there. And we will take a look at what we can do to try to help alleviate big piles at the handicap ramps.
Okay, because there really is a problem.
Mhm.
I mean, if you all seen it, you can't walk the sidewalks because of the big pile of snow.
Yep.
So
I can't guarantee we can keep it off of everyone,
No,
but we can definitely
but we're
try.
asking the people to keep their sidewalks clear, that we should be able, as a town, to be able to make it so you can walk the sidewalk to another sidewalk without a big pile that we cause.
Thank you. Of course, thank you. Any other comments this evening? Dave, is there anything online? Well, moving on, I need a motion to authorize payment of invoices and disbursements.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We have no executive session. I need a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This motion is adjourned.